Welcome, Julia. I'm gonna check check to see if LinkedIn has kicked off, and
Sounds good.
then start welcoming everybody who's starting to join us. Yep, I see us. There we go. Um, Let me see. It's always like a case of me muting myself, looking around, checking what's going on.
Love
Um,
it. You got to wear all the hats and do all.
the live streaming experience is really weird. I remember when I was starting to do it early on.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're talking into space, so there's always a moment where you're like, you fire up the stream. There's a bit of a delay, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're kind of like, hello, can,
Universe,
yeah, can anybody hear me?
we're here together. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been good. Like, I think overall, I see 28 people have joined.
Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, let me mute. Okay, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna mute. I don't know where the mute button is. So, okay, welcome everybody. 44. Wow, we're flying out here. 47, 50. Okay, welcome everybody. I am super excited to have Julia with me today. Um, while we're waiting for people to join in, um, and I want to say welcome to everybody who's watching us. Julia, say hi to the humans, to the
Hi,
to the
humans. Hi, everyone. Super excited to chat with you all. So glad that you all could make it. Very happy to be here. Jonas, thank you so much for inviting me.
yeah. Like, very excited to have you here today. So I guess one thing I want to do, and this is something I saw somebody else doing it, is if you are hearing us right now, like, put where you're from and your role in the chat, right? So we know who is with us. Put it in the chat, and then we'll just say hi to everybody. I see Tai Vong, a CTO. He says hello. Hi. Thank you for joining us, Tai. Yirne, of course, another regular. Thank you so much for joining today. We just passed 67 live viewers. So this,
Awesome.
yeah, like, just say hi, everybody. Tell us where you're from, what you are. Maybe it's your current role or what you're hoping to get, but put it in the chat so I know, and then I can say hi back. Philly, oh, that's awesome, Ty. Thank you so much. All right, so Julia, tell us, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into it.
Absolutely. Well, since people in the chat are filling in where they're from, I'll go ahead and say I'm originally from New York, but I've lived here in Atlanta, Georgia for almost 8 years. I am the CEO and co-founder of Aligned Recruitment, which is a tech recruitment company, and very excited to chat with your audience today.
Amazing. And I know, or from interesting enough, okay, for everybody listening, the way I got connected with Julia is that she's very active on LinkedIn, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of following her, seeing the stuff that she's posting, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I can relate, and it's the power of content creation, right? You start to feel like you know that person, or you
Mm-hmm.
start to see different sides of them. So from my understanding, it has been a new kind of journey for you.
Yeah.
How long has Aligned been in ops? What did you do before? How did you end up transitioning into it? Would love to know a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jonas. So yes, Aligned Recruitment is fairly new. We've been in business for about 8 months. And our origin story is that I was one of the victims of a post maternity leave layoff. I was 5 weeks postpartum with my second
Wow.
son. Yeah, it was a crazy moment when the CEO of my old company called me and said, "Hey, we're letting everyone go." But honestly, a huge part of my story is that I am a Christian. And so I really do believe that God is leading me and that God is going to be faithful. And so I had the very fortunate position of having 6 job offers within 2 weeks of getting laid off. One of those job offers was to join my co-founder Alana here at Aligned Recruitment. I actually took another job, believe it or not. I was like, "Oh, going out on your own, that seems so scary. I don't think so. I'm a mom. I've got all this stuff going on. I don't think I can do that. It seems more secure to just have a W-2 job." So I took another role with a former client of mine. And then before I was set to start, we were already working part time and aligned. And I was like, man, this is a blast. I love what we're doing. I love what we're building. And actually, I think it's a lot riskier to work for an employer than it is to work for yourself. So that's why I decided to make the leap and do full-time entrepreneurship. And I have never looked back. This past 8 months has been the most fun I've ever had in my career. I've worked in tech recruitment for several years. And this is my favorite. So I love it.
Amazing. Like there are definitely some parallels to what you're doing and what we're doing. Like got on the entrepreneurship journey about a year ago as well, a
Mm-hmm.
year and 3 months. Also a Christian, same sentiments. I share the same sentiments that you have. Super excited. So let me get in the chat now. Um, okay, Bemnet, thank you for coming. Joy, thank you for coming as well. Uh, Alpharetha, Alpharetha. I am butchering this name. I am sorry, Joy. I don't know. How do you say that? How do you say that, Julia?
I don't
Alpharetha.
know. Wait, I
Alpharetha.
do I have access to the chat? This is so
Yeah,
embarrassing.
you should. No, no, no. You should. If
Okay.
you log in
Okay,
into
yes, it's on my
LinkedIn.
right hand side. Okay, all I'm seeing is that Jason is also here from Atlanta. He works in application QA and security. So that's the last thing I can see. I don't see.
Okay, okay. So I would expect to have a lot of people from Ethiopia. I would have expect to see a lot of people from Atlanta and the U.S. Some different parts of the
Our
U.S.
two communities. Yep,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Our two communities are. Joy is a senior recruiter.
Awesome.
So, all right, perfect. Thank you all for joining. And if other people in the chat as well, let us know where you're from. What's okay? So there's and then if you have any questions as we're chatting, please feel free to put it in the chat. So you know, I guess we can get going. And what would be my first question? Let's start with general, like um you're a recruiter, so you have a lot of experience dealing with the entire, you know, process of hiring. So
Mhm.
for you, one as a recruiter, what are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, since this conversation is about the interview specifically, I'll answer what I'm looking for in the interview. So, I'm looking for you do not have to be the life of the party kind of personality, but you do need to have energy and enthusiasm for the opportunity. We recruit a lot of different roles within tech. We recruit sales, we recruit marketing, we recruit software engineers. You do not need to be one specific extroverted type of personality. I get that all of those roles have totally different skill sets, but you do need to have excitement about the job that we're discussing. So I would say that is number one. And that is a soft skill that anyone can master, even if you have to fake it for the 30-minute conversation that we have. Just let us see, like, why are we on this call? Why did you want, whether I reached out to you or if you applied, why are we having this conversation? How does this fit in with what your dreams and goals are and your skill sets? Why will this company benefit from bringing you on board? Because ultimately, they're making a pretty hefty investment in you. My company typically hires roles that are pretty high paying. So we're looking for candidates that are a really, really high production. Like, they're really going to make that company's investment worthwhile. So I would say, show us why you're worth this company investing in. Show us why they would benefit from bringing you on board. Show us why you're excited about the opportunity.
Okay, and you bring up such an important point, and I am kind of in the same space where I've had people who are interviewing, and one of the things that I discovered about Ethiopia is our culture is so different that Ethiopians don't interview very well. And
Hmm.
the reason is because in Ethiopia, you are expected to not talk about yourself from an early age. It's very taboo. It's considered as if it's bragging, like let the work speak for itself. You shouldn't talk. So you get this crazy society
Mm,
where you're not supposed to talk about yourself.
mm,
And then with coming to Canada and North America is almost 100, like 180 complete turn, right? Where from an early age you're trained to speak to your accomplishments, speak
yeah.
about your skill sets, etc., which is super important.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm doing this today, because I realized some of the people, like, they're vetted, they have like 3, 5 people saying this person is amazing, I've worked with them, I love them, they know how to do the job, etc. But then I bring them to the interview and they are underwhelming,
Hmm.
right? Because they don't feel comfortable saying this is what I did, I'm really good at this, etc., etc. And so very different cultural differences. So very, you know, interesting. Like I think people will benefit from hearing your perspective where they're
Well,
like,
such a
oh,
yeah, and that's such a good call out that it's an unfair advantage, right? That if an American candidate is up against, for example, an Ethiopian candidate, the American candidate, since they were born, has been taught to talk about themselves positively. Like they've been bragging since they were 3 years old, kicking a soccer ball. Versus,
yes,
like you're saying, it's a completely different. So I get that that's not fair. I completely agree with that. That sucks. Honestly, that there's that difference if they're both going after a role with an American company, that's going to be something that might just not give them the same advantages. However, one thing I will say, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. Like I think I'm giving you permission. If you're listening to this, you have permission to brag. Every interview you're in, you are there because you need to brag about yourself. That is why you
yes,
are in that conversation. That is how you're going to get the job. I agree in letting your accomplishments speak for themselves, but this hiring manager doesn't know you yet. They don't know your accomplishments. So you actually, the way that you let your accomplishments speak for themselves is you describe them. You say, these were my accomplishments in this role, in this company, in this capacity. That is how they can know why you're the right fit for the role. So even if you feel super uncomfortable doing it, you just got to do it. So
you just gotta
just got to do
you
it.
just gotta do it. It's so true, and that's why I did this today. I'm like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it's unfair or whatever. You have to deal with the world with how it is.
Yep.
Like
Exactly.
I'm always a huge fan of like, okay, how's the world right now? How can I succeed in it? That's it.
Yeah.
Like stuff that's not out that's outside of my control is outside of my control.
Mhm.
But then you definitely have to learn how to present yourselves well because you stick out like a sore thumb. Like if every person that they're interviewing knows how to present themselves well, it doesn't matter how amazing you are,
Mm-mm.
it's going to be very difficult for you to land the role. And I have been able to land roles for some people because I've built really good relationships with the hiring managers where I tell them, look, this is the Ethiopian culture. This is why this person is a killer. Like they're really good. Trust me. And
Mhm.
I have been able to succeed.
Mhm.
And they do go in and deliver. But then, like to me, no, 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 let's not have mountains we need to climb. Do what we need to do, present ourselves really well. And for the 106 people that are hearing this right now, you heard it here first. Julia has given you permission. Fake, fake it till you make it. Yeah, talk about your skill sets. And I think a lot of people already have all the ingredients necessary, right?
They
They
do.
have done the work.
They
Go
do,
ahead.
exactly. So one thing I want to say, someone in the chat just dropped in that they're an introvert. There is space for that. Like you can be an introvert. And honestly, there are a lot of jobs where you really should be an introvert or you're going to quit. I could never be a software engineer. Couldn't do it in a million years. Sitting and staring at a computer by myself, that sounds like literal torture. So those people should probably be at least a little bit introverted so that they don't hate their job. However, the interview is when you just need to like pump in a little bit of that extra. Maybe you're not comfortable, but you just got to pump in a little bit of that energy, a little bit of that enthusiasm, and sorry, enthusiasm, a little bit of that. It, maybe you feel a lot of excitement about what you've done, but we have to feel that. We as the interviewers have to feel that. And something I'll say, if you're at the interview stage, they've already seen your resume and they already like it. They already know that they like your experience. That's why you're in the interview. Now, this is going to excite some people and probably piss some people off. The job is yours to get or to lose once you get to
Mm.
the interview stage. It's yours. All you have to do, again, if it has to be fake, it has to be fake. Fine. But all you need to do is pump in the energy, pump in the enthusiasm. They already like your background. If you've gotten to the interview stage, the job can be yours if you just turn on those soft skills, turn on those communication skills, and interview well.
That is such a good point. And I think it's so good to get that direct feedback where they already like you. that
Mhm.
they, they have decided to meet with you because they like what they have seen already.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot of people that applied potentially to this role. You made it to the interview stage. So that means they already like you, and you speaking up is so important.
Mhm.
Let's talk some things I would call them landmine questions that show up in interviews. So one of them is like the comp discussion. What is your thoughts on that? How do you suggest people handle those conversations?
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of going for what you want. So, two thoughts on this. Number one, ideally, the recruiter should be upfront with you about the compensation. There's a lot of places in the US where it's actually legally required now for the job posting to include the compensation. So, ideally, you already know what the range is before you go into the conversation, or the recruiter freely volunteers it. However, I know that there are still some companies who prefer not to display the compensation. They prefer for the candidate to share what they want first. So if you find yourself in that position where the recruiter's like, "Hey, I'm not going to tell you what the compensation is. You tell me, what are you looking for?" First I would push back and I'd be like, yeah, so I'm very interested in this role. I understand that the market range is, and then give whatever the market range is. You need to do your research before the initial interview so you know what you're talking about. And then you say something like, hey, does this role align with that market range? If so, what is the figure that your team has in mind? That again puts the ball back in the recruiter's court, because I don't want you to undersell yourself. I don't want you to give them a salary that's lower than what they actually have budgeted for the role. If they dig in and they still don't want to give you a number, fine. What I do at that point, if y'all have read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, it's an amazing book about negotiation. You can literally finish it this week. Like, literally, go buy a copy on Amazon. It's $15. You can have it done by tomorrow. Okay. So this book is so helpful because he gives you the exact step-by-step process of how to negotiate everything ever, including a salary conversation. But basically, I shoot high. So let's say the base salary I'm actually targeting is 150K. I'll say something like 170 to 180. And then we'll probably get to that 150K mark. But definitely do your market research, right? If you're applying for a role where you have really no business making that amount of money, they're just going to laugh you out of the room. So you do need to make sure that you do your research and know what's a fair ask. But then, yeah, I would always ask high and then be prepared to come down.
Okay, we're getting some nuggets today, so that is really good. Okay, another landmine. What is your biggest weakness? Like,
I So this drives me crazy because on the one hand, so I do get the question. One of my clients asked this question in a way where he actually wants to know a time that you failed. Like, he
mm,
actually wants to know. He actually wants to know because he wants to see that you're humble. Like, we're all human. We all make mistakes. He doesn't want you to do the interview thing where you like humble brag, where you're like, well, one time I had like a really crazy deadline. So I had to work until 2 a.m. to get it done. Like, yes, you procrastinated, so that's not great, but you're still bragging about how hardworking you are that you stayed up till 2 a.m. to finish the project. So what he honestly wants to know is like a mistake that you made where like you learned from it, but you just made it. You just made a mistake. So what's tough is you don't always know what the hiring manager actually wants to know when they ask you that question. Like, some people actually want to know the truth and they really do want to know a mistake you made or a weakness you have. Others, when they ask that question, they want you to have the like politically correct interview answer where it's actually a humble brag. So that's a time when, again, your soft skills just have to come in and you kind of have to read the room. Luckily, this client that I'm talking about right now, he's upfront with his candidates. He's like, I want to hire people who are hungry, smart, and humble. So he's upfront that he wants to see your humility. He wants to see that you can admit if and when you make mistakes. Others aren't as transparent, unfortunately. So I would say that's one where I can't give you like a tried and true, this is always the right answer. You kind of got to read the person and read
yeah,
what you think they're actually looking for when they ask that question.
it's definitely true. Sometimes it's a case of I care too much. I love deeply.
Right.
Yeah, you're
So
there like,
hardworking. I work myself
yeah,
to the bone.
yeah. I just give too much. I just give.
I'm too generous.
Yeah, I'm too generous with my
Such a
time for
giver. I
work.
know.
Yeah.
I hate that. I never ask that question. I hate that
Yeah,
question.
it is a cringy question. It shows up more than like I've noticed. It shows up quite a bit though. So, I'm gonna say if you have any questions though, for everybody watching, please put them in the chat. Like we're gonna do rolling questions. We're not gonna LinkedIn, the chat system is horrible, I'd say. So have to keep refreshing it because sometimes you won't see stuff. Um, so Peggy's here. Hi, Peggy. Atni's there. Hi, Atni. Um, okay, so okay, El Shaddai says, "Fake it until you make it." My motto has changed. So
My
you've
motto was
yeah,
changed.
yeah, you've converted one person already, Julia.
All right,
So
I'll take it.
there you
I'll take
go, there
one.
you go. Yeah,
Thank you.
a lot more in there as well. So if you have any questions, yeah, put it in. I'll try and periodically check. Um, the other kind of thing I want to ask you is, and I've been kind of in the recruiting space, and one big question I have is, when in a society where everybody learns how to talk about themselves and their accomplishments, how do you vet? Like, how do you figure out, okay, this person is legit, like they, as opposed to like this person is like, talking, because there are talkers and doers. And I've found out personally, like, some people will talk your ear off, but then when it comes to delivery, so how do you go about vetting the exceptional people?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I ask project specific questions. So I ask, okay, so you worked on this project. What was your specific role? What did you literally accomplish? What were the things that you personally drove? And that looks different depending on the role that I'm recruiting for. So if I'm recruiting for a Python developer, for example, I'll ask about projects and specific code they've written. But then I actually also have technical questions that I ask that the engineering directors at my clients have come up with and said, hey, these are the technical questions they need to be able to answer if they so that we can vet if they can actually do the technical, or if they can perform at the technical level needed for this specific role. Then let's say I'm recruiting for a software salesperson. I'm going to look at, okay, what was your quota? What was your quota attainment? How did you get to that? What was, we break down their granular metrics, how many cold calls, how many meetings in a week, those types of pieces kind of give me a picture of, did you actually do what you say you're capable of doing?
Yes. Okay. So you have some technical questions that come through to you from your clients, I guess, and then you take that, you ask those questions, give the feedback back, and then make sure that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Let me see.
We do have
Um,
a question in the comments. Rebecca asked if comments are only visible to speakers. I believe they are. Is that correct, Jonas?
I think comments should be visible to everybody.
Oh, okay.
Rebecca,
Yeah,
I like sometimes like if you don't refresh, you don't see the entire list of comments. So a part of what I do, and I think hopefully LinkedIn does better. Like if you do something like YouTube or Twitch, if you're
mhm,
streaming on those platforms, the comments all come through, they look good, etc. So when I just refreshed, I just saw Maza and Johannes uh, that they just typed, but I didn't see it until I refreshed. So it's
got
kind
it.
of a weird thing with LinkedIn. So refresh, and everything should come through Rebecca. Um, if you have any questions, please feel free to send it in the chat. And I guess so. The job market, especially in tech, is a bit tough right now. For those looking for work at the moment, what would be your advice?
Oh my gosh. So many things. So I'm going to start with actually the people that aren't currently looking for work. So you need to be building your brand every single day of your life. So even if you think your current job is the safest, most stable thing ever in the world, and you never want to leave, you want to retire there, you still need to be building your personal and professional brand every second of every day. Every single email you send, every project that you raise your hand for, every time you overperform, those are all ways that you can make sure that you're safe, whether at your current company or if you decide to move on. So if you do, worst case scenario, get fired, get laid off, or just decide you want to move on, you have this amazing treasure trove of, you've built up this brand of being an overachiever, a high performer, a top leader, someone that someone wants on their team. So that's number one. If you're in a position where right now you're job hunting, you can't go back in time and become a better performer. Okay, right now, let's talk about what you can do. Number one, network. I know you hate that I just said that. I know that everyone hates networking unless you're like the 1% of super extroverted people that like walk into a room with strangers and they're like, oh my gosh, yay. I get that most people hate that. I get it. I get it. I get it. So do it in a way that works for you. I'm not kidding. There's no one right way to network. You need to network in the way that you'll actually do it. So if for you, the answer is right now, literally getting out your phone and texting, I don't know, people you went to college with that you haven't talked to in a couple of years, people that were on your high school hockey team. I don't care. Do whatever you want. If it's your community, great, start there. If you have an old boss that you really loved, reach out to them, and you just have to put yourself out there. You have to ask, hey, what connections do you know of? What opportunities do you have? If you want to just send cold outreaches on LinkedIn, even if you don't have LinkedIn Sales Nav or LinkedIn Recruiter, just on the free version of LinkedIn, you can run a search in that search bar up at the top left, and you can type in the titles of people who would be your manager. So let's say you're a product manager. So you would report to a head of product or a product director. Go ahead and look for people that have that title and pull them up in your industry and just send them messages. Just say, hey, I saw this, specific thing about their profile. Love that. Would love to connect with you. Just keep it simple. You're going to get some people that ignore you. You're going to get some people that say no, and you are going to get some people that say yes. So you will not get a new job unless you put yourself out there. So you need to network. You need to not give up until you've landed what you're looking for. And then even when you do land what you're looking for, you just have to keep your foot on the gas. You never let up. You continue to be a top performer in whatever role you land.
Amazing. And like, of course, love the answers. Love the answers. And these are things that I tell people all the time. I want to dig a little bit deeper into how to build your brand. So when you're talking about you're in your company, right? You already have a job. As you're building the brand, in terms of messaging, are you thinking um like letting people in the org know what you're doing in terms of like your successes, what you're achieving, etc.? Or are you also thinking of expanding to like content creation, maybe in LinkedIn, talking about work, talking about your area of expertise, and building out a brand that way? What are the different ways of building a brand that come to mind?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll be honest, I didn't really start posting heavily on LinkedIn until I started my company. So I don't think that you need to become a content creator if you're content to be an employee, or to be a member of a team. If you're not looking to start your own company, I don't really think that you need to do content creation unless you want to. You can if you want to. I don't think it's going to hurt you, but I don't think it's necessary. What I think is really going to move the needle for you in your career is your work ethic. So no, I'm not saying you should start jumping on Zoom calls and being like, "Did you know what project I just did?" I do not think you
Just
should.
let yeah, just put it in the chat.
I do not think
Every meeting you enter, I'm so and so. These are all my accomplishments. Know my name.
I was this percent to goal last quarter. Are you proud of me? Yeah,
Yeah.
please do not do that. No, you'll build a reputation for being someone who raises their hand for stretch projects, or being someone who says, "No, that's not my job. I don't want to do that."
Mm.
Build a reputation for being someone who responds quickly to Slacks, emails, requests for help, questions, or someone who has to get chased for feedback, has to get chased for answers. You are building your reputation right now. Every single thing you do is either casting a vote for someone who's a top performer or a lower level performer. Every action you take is building your brand. You're never not building your brand. You're just either building your brand in a positive direction or a negative direction.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that people watch, people
Yeah,
observe always, always. And you
always.
might think like what you're doing is not that important, but you always have to just, keep a high level of excellence.
Yes.
I would say, and this is something I've said before, being in the US context or the Canadian context, it might not be as relevant um, to build a brand or be a content creator or have content out there online. I do think for global talent, it does make sense. And a part of the reason I say this is because there's a massive gap in awareness about the world sometimes. Like we
Mm,
live in our own bubble. We don't know much about, like when I say Ethiopia, for example, if you're from the United States, take a guess for how many people you think live in Ethiopia. Okay. You have that number. Let's just, okay, good. You have that number. It's 120 million. And if you didn't land on that number or anywhere close, it should come as a surprise to you. So I think for global talent, um, putting yourself out there, especially video, I think is very, very powerful because
Mm,
the first thing that a lot of people do is they check your LinkedIn
mm,
immediately. They go check your LinkedIn. If there's like you have your picture, you have some stuff like, of course, optimize it, make it really good, add, a lot of description under your roles, do all the optimization. But then the next step is if you have video on there, and if you're confident about your communication abilities, now they can see you as a person. Like, and
mm,
you're mentioning, Julia, about how you didn't really do a lot of content creation or post on LinkedIn before you started your role. And I'm the same. Like, so last year about this time, I had 100 and I think 76 connections.
That's crazy.
Honestly, like I literally had about 176 connections. I
Wow.
started actively posting July, I think.
Mhm,
That's when I started posting. I think I'm above 2,500. And it's not just about um it takes a lot of time. It's not like for the faint of heart. You do have to put in an effort, but the amount of opportunities and connections that it leads to is insane.
yeah,
Like, so
agreed.
I think if you're working, if you're looking, if you're global talent, you have to go the extra mile. Like, this is the reality. You're not at the same playing field as a local talent,
Mhm,
so you have to put more effort in. And I do think humanizing yourself through video content is number one.
mhm. That's a good
Because
call out, Jonas. I love that, difference between global and local. I hear
and
that.
even for local, I would say humanizing yourself through video content is still number one. Because what
Mm,
happens is, like, all these companies, if they don't have a great recruiter like Julia in the mix, they put a job ad out, they get a billion people that apply,
yeah,
paper based. They
yeah,
use some sort of ATS to filter.
yeah.
So you learn how to game the system. Perfect. What? Fine. And then you somehow make it onto their desk. But then you're just a face and a name on a piece of paper. But then the moment that's, let's say, somebody goes onto your LinkedIn, you don't need to have much. But if you have some video content talking about your specific area of expertise, you put yourself 1,000 miles ahead of everybody else,
Mhm,
because now the hiring manager can relate to you as a human being. They're like, okay, I see, Jonas, I see him talking, right? Content is so powerful. Even if you're not a content creator, having a few pieces of video, maybe once a month, out there over time, I think is going to be massive for your brand. I think so.
mhm, mhm.
Just a thought, just a thought. So let me check the comments. Let's check the comments. Rebecca said she's loving this conversation. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Rebecca. Thank you so much. Maza says yes, she can attest. Networking is key. Amazing. Um, oh, there we go. So Johannes has a question. What soft skill do you advise for an interview in American culture, in North American culture? So soft skills, I guess. So Julia, any thoughts? What are some of the soft skills? We can broaden it up to like even succeeding in the workplace. What are some of the soft skills that you can think of for interviewing and also for work?
Confidence, number 1. Literally,
Oh,
don't
oh,
do anything else. Just build confidence.
oh!
It'll solve all your problems. I
You're
guarantee you.
you're hurting me. Like, it hurts because like that is not. And I've said this to somebody today. Like, the Ethiopian culture does not build up confident people. It just
I
doesn't.
hate that. I hate that.
I really hate that as well. But that's true. It really doesn't. Um, and it's kind of like, because it's you are super super hyper aware to what people think about you in the society, and people are not afraid to speak up and kind of knock you down a peg. Like, that's
Man,
kind of how the society can be. That's the negative side. There's positive sides. The positive side is you build ridiculously good relationships.
mm,
Like, you have amazing, like, the social ethic in Ethiopia, like, and this is what I tell people: North America, work ethic really good at the expense of the social ethic.
mm,
And then some parts globally, social ethic amazing at the sometimes at the expense of the work ethic. I
mm,
do feel like there's a happy medium somewhere.
yep.
um I do feel like there's a happy medium somewhere, but then North America is like one side of the pendulum, and then some parts of global you get the other side of the pendulum, and
Mhm.
then they meet together, and it's like chaos happens sometimes. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is. Uh,
Mm,
but to where I'm getting to, that is the negative side of being in a very social kind of society. If it is kind of, if it has that perspective, then people just they might be confident, they just don't appear confident.
Mm,
You just get this very quiet confidence that comes from knowing your shit. Like
mhm.
when you're very good at what you do, there's this quiet confidence, but then if you ask them to talk about themselves, God help you. And then then you get programmers, they're already introverted,
Mhm,
right? And then so all they want to do, I think they hate people, some of them, they just love code.
mhm.
So you put them in front of an interview and then it's like compounded. um
Get that, but hear me say, for every developer who hates people and loves code, there's a developer who's just as good of a coder as you, but also is able to. And if it's fake, it's fake. But they
yeah,
can fake it for the 30-minute interview. That's my point. Like if you can just put it on, I'm not saying you have to change your personality, but I am saying that the number one soft skill that's going to help you is just come across
it's
confidently.
confident. Yeah.
That's it.
And it's true. I've experienced it, being in Canada. It doesn't really matter as much how good you are if you can't convey how good you are. The-
Exactly. Like
there's no,
don't
yeah.
shoot your own self in the foot by not being able to confidently communicate what you're capable of. That just hurts you.
Yes. So today I'm giving everybody permission, all more than 100 of you, speak about your skills, speak about your accomplishments, confidently state, take up space, be who you are.
Take up space. I love that.
Yeah, take up space, be who you are. If you're an amazing programmer, say I'm okay. Don't say I'm okay. I'm okay. Say I'm an amazing programmer. I crush Java. I own.
Better yet, give examples of how you crush Java. Tell us
Yes.
about the project you did, the
Yes.
success metrics of that project. That's
Yes, say I single-handedly built an app to do this because I was interested in learning this new language. I did it. It works. Like, go ahead, be extra.
mhm,
Like I think sometimes you have to go extra to correct for what's middle. For a
mhm.
lot of people, like they think, yeah, I'm out there, I'm confident now, and it's like, no, no, you're not doing enough. Like whatever makes you feel cringe as a human being, do it a couple of times just to course
Oh, that's
correct.
so funny, Jonas.
you
Oh
you actually have to, like, sometimes the way, if you're like on this end of the pendulum
my mhm.
and you need to get to middle, you don't get to middle by aiming for middle, you gotta go cringe opposite,
You
like,
gotta go cringe. I
yeah, you just
understand.
gotta,
Yeah.
yeah, gotta go opposite and be like over the top. And what I've found is even when people are trying to be over the top, they're not. Like
Mhm.
they're not even close to middle yet. But for them, their experience is so different. They're like,
Yeah.
oh my god, I just died inside. Like that was so cringe. And it's like, no, you still have to get more. You have to go
Mhm.
farther. You if you are amazing, and this is my message, if you are really good, then it's okay. Just speak about your accomplishments, go in detail, talk about your projects. If you're a leader, talk about how you lead your team in detail and show yourself and fight for your role, fight for your career.
Yeah.
Um,
No one else will advocate for you. You need to advocate for yourself.
and as you said that, I will, maybe you find this interesting. So let's say I'm gonna make you an offer in Ethiopian culture, and this is not like, it's not standard across the board, but it tends to happen. So if I'm going to make you a job offer, Ethiopian society expects me to think, what would be fair for Julia? Like, what is the market? What should I offer Julia so that it's fair for her?
Mhm.
Not, so I'm not only going to consider my what I think is fair, what I think is reasonable for my company, etc. I to some extent the culture would expect me to think on your behalf as well. Because if I make you like a really lowball offer, the culture will drag me down. It will drag me. They'll be
Mhm.
like, did Jonas just offer Julia this much for this role? Is he insane? Like, that's crazy. Shame on him.
Mhm.
And then I come to North America. First thing I realized, you have to advocate for yourself. Everybody's like, the way I would do it in North America is like, okay, this is the role, this is how much I want to pay, this is what I'll offer Julia. And then Julia has to say yes or no, depending on for herself. Like, she has to advocate for herself, she has to think for herself. So
Mhm.
there isn't that social dynamic of me thinking on your behalf. You have to do it yourself. So
Correct.
I have had Ethiopians where they're like, can you believe they offer me this much, etc. And I'm like, that's okay. Why are you, it's like, no,
Mhm.
I don't think it's fair. I'm like, that's not how North American society works.
Yeah. If you
they
don't
tell
think it's
they
fair,
tell
then take the job.
Yeah, you don't take the job. You just say, "Oh, this doesn't work for me.
Mhm,
Sayonara. Bye bye." And then the other side is you say, "Well, you just offered me like $15 an hour. Um, I think I'm worth 25."
mhm.
You just push back, and then if they don't like it, you move on. That's how
Exactly.
society is here. So I think a lot of people, if I don't know what other cultures are like, but globally, if you come from a social culture where you're expected to kind of think on the other person's behalf, that's also a massive roadblock. So in the North America, that's not how it works, baby. Like you just
Mhm,
gotta say, this is they offer you, they're thinking about their own situation, you advocate for yourself.
mhm.
So
And hear me
learning.
say, there are a lot of people in America too who can have a victim mindset about stuff like that, where they're like, "Oh, woe is me. That's so unfair." So I don't think that's strictly an Ethiopian thing. Like I think a lot of people here can feel like they're owed. Like they're like, "Oh, you should have offered me more. Or you should have done better by me." Like I could have done that when I got laid off 5 weeks postpartum. Like, how dare you lay me off? But that doesn't benefit me. That doesn't benefit my family if I sit around and cry. That who
Yeah,
wins? No one wins. So it basically, I think this is a message that yes, culturally it's more appropriate in the US for you to advocate for yourself, but also that's a skill set that I think everyone needs to learn.
I
Whatever
agree.
country you were born and raised in, it is up to you to build your own success. Whether you're an entrepreneur or you work internally for a company, you are your best advocate. You are the person who cares about you more than anyone else. You can have the best boss in the world, and I guarantee you that they don't care about you like you care about you. So you need to fight for what you need.
Yes, yes, 1,000%. I agree. Gonna check to see if anything came through. So, so some funny comments. You know, some people are talking about we're built different.
We're
Some
built
Ethiopians. So, yeah, yeah. Okay, this has been such an enlightening conversation, and I think a part of the reason I wanted you here is because for this, right? I wanted you to come and tell it like it is, right? Just let the people know, because on the one side, um, if you don't know the layout of the land, it's very difficult to succeed.
different.
I believe that, like, if you don't know the layout of the land, what the culture is like, what the society is like, um, it's very difficult to succeed. So that's a part of the reason why I wanted you here. So thank you for coming in and letting the people know what the standards are and what is required.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess the other, I know, I feel like a lot of people are in the tech space, and maybe this is a question geared towards more global talent. Um, Before I address that, how do you feel about remote work? Like, do you think it's here to stay? Do you think most roles are going to go back and become hybrid or full time in person? What are your thoughts around remote work?
Remote work was here before the pandemic. So I
Okay.
think remote work will always be available for those who want it. So I've worked remotely since 2018. And I know a lot of people that worked remotely for a long time before that. I think it'll become less and less common. I think a lot of companies will continue to return to office. And I think then same as what we just talked about, as a candidate, you just need to advocate for yourself. Like, do you want to work in an office or do you want to work remotely? Because you'll have both options. It's just up to you to pursue what you want.
Okay. And then in terms of like finding companies that are willing to hire remotely, is there like a subsection of places where people go to find those roles? Because one thing, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's easily searchable on, whether you're looking at jobs on LinkedIn or Indeed or Monster or ZipRecruiter. Like, yeah, you could just filter by remote.
Okay. Have you noticed this as well? I've noticed even when I filter for remote sometimes, I go into the job description and I find out it's hybrid. Is that like a
Sometimes that is so annoying. So yeah, hiring managers who are listening to this, please, 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 if you check remote, please actually have it be a remote job. If it's
thank you.
hybrid, check it as whatever location it's based in, because that candidate, even though it's hybrid, they have to be physically based in that location to do that job. So yes, that does happen sometimes for sure. But I'll be honest, the vast majority of our clients hire fully remotely from anywhere. So there are a lot of companies that do offer it. And yes, sometimes they're mislabeled, but there is a lot of opportunity out there if you're targeting remote work specifically.
Okay. You said anywhere, so I'm curious to ask. When you say anywhere, anywhere in the states or Canada, anywhere in the world, like
Yeah.
what?
Good question. So it depends. So some of our clients don't do visa sponsorships and can't hire people outside the US. There's definitely a lot of companies that are like that. Actually, on a personal level, I've recently started experiencing this because my sister, she lives in Thailand now. So she's had to very specifically target jobs that are actually work from anywhere, which is very different than work from home. Because typically, work from home just means from the US or Canada. But work from anywhere means you can be in any time zone, you can be based in any country. So, yes, that's a totally fair
Mm.
distinction. Way more companies, I'll be honest, don't allow for global talent than do. So that just is a matter of, like you said, education, like companies believing and understanding that there is amazing talent around the globe. And then sometimes it's logistical. Like if you're a little tiny startup, you might not have the infrastructure to hire internationally. That might be part of the holdup as well.
That's very good. So work from anywhere, not work from home. That's a good distinction to have, and that has been my experience as well. Some of the things I've noticed is for some companies, they have they won't don't want to deal with taxes and all the stuff associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
And the positive aspect is there are a lot of companies that are making global hiring accessible, where you'll pay like $200 a month or something for their service, but they will handle everything for you in the local context,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they have some massive companies. I think the biggest one might be Deal right now, DEEL. There's a bunch of them out there, so they'll handle everything for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that those are some, including payment, etc., etc. So those are some of the things. Um, okay, so Maz is saying remote work should be one of the SDGs. What is an SDG?
I
Do you
have no
know?
idea. What's
Okay, Maz, are you gonna? Is it one of the social development goals? Is that what it is?
maybe I've never
Yeah,
heard
you're gonna have to educate us, Maza, because I personally don't know. So, um, like, put it in the chat so I know. And I think what in the global space, there's a few things. One, um, cultural like viability, like in terms of culture, can we communicate? Do they really speak good English? Can we communicate, etc.? Is going to be a big one. The other is accountability is a lot more difficult, right? So like when you have somebody globally, it tends to be a more of a handshake. Even if you have contracts, etc., etc., it's tough to enforce. Like some,
that.
if you have somebody in the United States, you can go after them if you needed to. Hopefully, you never have to, and you want to hire people where you can trust them, and that never becomes an issue. But I think globally, that's a part of the reason people kind of feel a bit skittish. They're like, I don't know this person from Adam. They're thousands and thousands of miles away. Can
Mm-hmm.
I trust them? Is another thing. Um, Time zones, of course, time zones are another thing. Most of the people that we have on our platform, they just end up working US time zones. It
Yeah.
is what it is. And it's not that bad. Like for Ethiopia, I think they finish around midnight.
Boof.
Uh,
That sounds horrible. I go to
Look,
bed. I'm one of the like I used to be really cool, guys. Before I had kids, I could totally go out, chill, be out till midnight, one, two. What now I go to bed at literally 8:30. I'm not kidding. 8:30. I'm one of those crazy. I'm in the 4 a.m. club. I'm one of those crazy people that gets up at 4 a.m. every morning. Because if I don't, the house is never quiet. So that is why I have to do that. All that being said, I'm very, very impressed with those of you who work U.S. hours and you live in another country. That takes such dedication, such work ethic, such discipline. I'm very impressed by that.
oh, you say that, but then, and I think I mentioned it earlier. Ethiopia has had 15% inflation the last 10 years,
Uh,
and like 35% 2022 when I went back to Ethiopia and decided to start Mado. It's so to me, to a lot of people, we're bougie here. We're so comfy.
we're bougie.
Yeah, we're North America. Like some of the challenges when people talk, I'm like, you should travel, spend a year in a different part of like the world,
Yeah.
and then that's like don't don't go to France or somewhere nice, and you're like, yeah, no, go somewhere, live there for a month, and you'll
Mhm.
appreciate your life 1,000 times more.
I
Um,
actually really agree with that. So back when I was in college and all my friends were studying abroad in like Italy or England or whatever, I actually studied abroad in Durban, South Africa because I had that exact same sentiment. I was like, I don't want to just go to like another bougie country that is basically is America, but they speak a different language. Like I want to go somewhere that's actually a different context. One of my best friends that I made there actually was from Ethiopia. And so I got to kind of get to know her and her culture a little bit. But yeah, it was so eye opening. I was there for 4 months and I came back to the US and I was like, man, it's what's what weighs on my heart. So I'm a foster parent. I feel very strongly about using your resources to lift up those who just didn't get the same opportunities. Like I did nothing to be born in America. Like I didn't
yes.
earn that. I didn't get that. I didn't there's no reason for that to have happened of my own volition. I didn't cause that to happen.
Yep.
So I think it's truly someone just put in the chat. So SDG stands for Sustainable Development Goals. So to circle back to that conversation, it is absolutely a sustainable development goal for those of us who have the privilege of being in a space like this to make roles accessible for talent that's in other spaces. So I totally agree that remote work is part of that strategy and it's part of that goal. And I think that the more people expose themselves to other cultures, the better. So I totally agree with what you just said, Jonas.
Yeah, I like yeah, so it's kind of you travel and then you come back and realize how many privileges you have, and
You do
it's
something about it. I think that's what's key. I think you don't just sit and be like, wow, lucky me. I think you're like, okay, I have resources that other people don't have. What do I do with them? How do I lift other
yeah,
people up? How do I invest?
exactly, exactly. And I would always say number one, like there's a lot of aid that goes into different parts of Africa.
Mhm.
I would always say if you give people the opportunity to provide for themselves, I would always say that's number one, because
Yes.
now they're adding value
Mhm.
to the global economy. They're
Mhm.
bringing what they have to the table. They're getting compensated. It's a win-win on both sides. And at the same time, like I'm always for value-based pricing. At Mado, people ask me, "What's the local price, etc." And I'm like, "Never. I never tell people that." And what I tell them is the local price is irrelevant because it hasn't kept up with what the demand is to make a
Good for
living in
you.
Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And then it's like I just brought you a project manager. You would have paid 100K or more, actually a lot more depending on where you are.
Yeah.
I just brought you a project manager for 35 USD an hour. You take it
Mhm.
and be thankful, because that's not good. You're never gonna find that person. Like we're
Mhm.
doing so. So in a sense, when you're talking about them staying up until midnight, if in the local market you're, let's say, making five, $3 to $5 an hour, and now I'm like you have an opportunity to make 35. Guess
You're gonna
what?
stay up till midnight.
Guess what? You're gonna step over people. Like you're gonna.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like so, I think. And I was like that. I'm like, for work life balance, and I used to say that. And somebody just told me, "You're out of touch, Jonas." Like, well, people are, they'll do whatever it takes to get that compensation.
Mhm.
You're just living in Canada, so and it's true. I'm in Canada, so I'm not. I certainly will not work until midnight, and I will not.
Yeah.
There's no universe that's gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
Actually, yeah, there's no universe. There's no reason to. But then for global talent, they don't have the same level of luxury.
Yeah. The
So
same
it
level of
is,
choice.
yeah, they don't have the same level of choice. So um maybe in the I'm a huge fan of asynchronous, I think that's how you say it, asynchronous work, especially with coding and stuff. I
Mm.
don't think there's a reason to overlap fully. I think as long as you have the stand-up meetings or at a certain time,
Mhm.
they can work in their own time zone, deliver what needs to be delivered. Actually, for some companies you can work 24/7, just
Yeah.
have people globally, and then you can be working literally 24/7, and that's one of the appeals that you have. um so any questions? I think we're getting close to wrapping up. Thank you so much. Like we've had average like 100 people the entire time, so amazing. Thank you all so much for attending today. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. I haven't seen any come through recently, so if I missed it, like I'll try and respond after this session. But if you have questions right now, time to put it in the chat. Thank you so much.
One comment I just saw from Karuna, she and I used to work together. She just mentioned that she's glad that we did this live session. So thank you, Karuna. We're grateful too. This has been a blast.
Yeah, this has been a blast, and I think to the point that I made earlier, yeah, just putting yourself out there, such a powerful thing. And I love that you're posting constantly on LinkedIn, just seeing. I remember I think it's the bathroom video, like the picture with your, like, it's absolute chaos. It's absolute mayhem. And then I'm like, as a parent, I can relate to
You
this.
can
This,
relate. I
yeah,
know.
I can relate. And then I also know that Julia is a human being.
Yeah.
So there's so much power in that. Where I saw that, and that's why this happened, right? It was because you were putting content out there, and I was kind of in the background. It would pop up, I would see it, etc., etc. And the same thing has been happening in my space where people are reaching out to me and I'm like, oh, how did you? I was like, oh, I've been following your stuff and it's really good. And I'm like, okay. So
Mhm.
you feel like you're not doing anything when you're putting stuff out there. It's a very lonely experience because a lot of people are lurkers. They lurk, they never comment, they never get in there. So they just watch your stuff and they appreciate you in silence. And I'm like,
We appreciate
just
you.
yeah, they appreciate. I'm like, put it out there. Come on, come on.
One thing that's encouraged me as a content creator is I always look at the impressions. So yes, I'm grateful for the engagements, the likes, the comments, but I really love to see the impressions. Like how many people did this content reach? Like I'm so grateful that I have this platform where I do get to share. So what Jonas is referencing, I took a selfie in my bathroom mirror with my 2-year-old playing in the sink. My I think he was 7 months old at the time on my hip. My husband was traveling for work. I was trying to put makeup on. Meanwhile, like the faucet's running, the dogs are barking. My older boys, one of them left his track uniform at home, so I had to run it up to school. Like it is chaos. It's total chaos. And then in the midst of it, I'm running a company. I'm running a business. My nanny's about to arrive. I'm about to handle my kids, and I'm about to go up and try to get some work done. So that's real. That's what we're all dealing with day in and day out. So yeah, it's such a blast to get to share that just authentic, like, yeah, there's business that I want to talk about, but there's also I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a human being.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's
it's
so
fun.
good. So Ty actually asked us a question. He says, I'm curious what makes your company unique compared to other recruitment firms. What is the unique proposition? So go first, and I can talk about a little bit about Mado after. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ty, for that question. So, what's unique about us is that we're a fully embedded recruitment partner. So, we don't just chuck resumes at you and run away. We meet with you on a weekly basis. When we first launch our partnership with you, we actually do what we call a calibration call, where 48 hours after we've had our initial intake, we present you with 10 profiles on LinkedIn of candidates who we think match the job description. And then you give us feedback on every single one individually to make sure we're on the right page before we go out and start blasting messages to these candidates. And then throughout the whole process, we maintain a weekly meeting cadence. We stay in touch via email and Slack. We get fully embedded, like we get internal email access, we get internal Slack access, so we can actually be like an extension of your company. And it's so annoying. I talk to so many companies who are like, oh my God, I have this one recruitment firm for developers, this other one for salespeople, this other one for operations people. We specialize by industry instead of specializing by role. So we can handle recruiting for directors of sales or recruiting for product managers or recruiting for heads of engineering. We can recruit across verticals because we specialize in the tech sector instead of specializing in a specific position.
Amazing. That's such a good, um, you know, way to let people know what your unique value proposition is. So Ty, I hope that answered your question. So I can say a little bit about Mado. We are not really a recruitment company, right? We're more of a talent platform, and what we're trying to achieve is essentially find exceptional people everywhere globally and put them in one place. That is the short form of what we're trying to achieve. Just find people, and what we look for, number one, we look for trust. Like we need character. Like um I think smart people with no character are the ones who do the most damage,
Mm,
so character is number one, skill set is number two, and within that it's like a sub umbrella: communication, like English communication. They have to be very, very strong. Their accent is, everybody that we have on the platform, I would say 95%, their English accent is better than mine. That is the reality. And we just launched our platform. It's mado.ca. You can go check it out. We have a bunch of profiles there. The beauty of it is it's video. So you go on there. right? You check out the profile, you see a little blurb about them, you can get in touch with them directly. We'll have LinkedIn in there as well at some point in the future, and then you can see video of them, because I believe video sells the most. That is my strongest belief. And what we're also and this is the craziest thing I tell everybody, and everybody freaks out. We are community supported, and we do not take a cut at all, because helping global talent find work, there's a lot of gap and awareness that we need to fill. There isn't a lot of demand yet, right? Not a lot of people are coming to look for Ethiopian talent. So we have to be in people's faces. We have to do a lot of marketing. We have to put people in front of people. And when we do that, everything is inbound. Nobody's gonna give us a cut once we have bared every information out there. So this is the direction we're going in. So check us out. I'm very excited about what we're doing. Every success is a celebration. We are getting some good traction, which I'm super stoked about. So that's a little bit about what we do, what Mado does, and I think. Okay, one last question. Do you have like I want to be respectful of your time, Julia. If you need to go, we can wrap up right now.
I appreciate that. I do have to jump. So if we're able to wrap up now, I will say if anyone does want to get in touch with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Julia Arpag, and you can also check out our company at alignedrecruitment.com. But I do have to jump. But it's been a blast.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Julia. I will stay behind and then just kind of, you know, um, off board the rest of our people. But
Perfect.
then feel free to leave. Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you.
Everybody, put it in the chat. Thank Julia, add her, tag her. Appreciate her. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
today.
you, everyone. My pleasure. Bye.
Okay, see ya. Okay. So Ty had one question. One last question is, what is your perspective on the market? Is on the rebound to coming back, especially since we're in March heading into the summer months? There's still a lot of open to work banners out there. Ty, from what I've heard, and I'm not an expert in this, but from what I've heard, it does seem to be the case where a lot of companies overhired during COVID. Right, there was a lot of, especially in the startup space, a lot of venture money available, and then they're kind of correcting. Um, so, do I think it's going to rebound? Um, I think until the venture space, at least for tech, until the venture space, the venture capital ecosystem kind of starts to adjust and goes in the opposite direction. As long as money's tight, I think it's gonna be still gonna be tight. I do feel though it's also an amazing opportunity for the market, because a lot of people leaving these really good tech companies might start their own startups, et cetera, et cetera. So I think long term for the economy, it might not be a bad thing. I don't know if that answers your question. There are still a lot of people looking, and also from like a time perspective, December everything slows down. Everything literally dies down in December because nobody's really hiring. January is the same, right? Like people are still figuring out budgets, still figuring out strategy. February is also kind of the same. So I do feel like hiring tends to kind of ramp up in March, start to ramp up in March, just the natural progression, and then kind of dies down towards the end of the year. So I'm hoping people will start getting a lot more work. Um, but those are my thoughts on it. Not sure if that was helpful. Um, okay, any other questions? Let me check. Okay, so I am wrapping up. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. I really appreciate it. I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow me. I post a lot about remote work. I post a lot about global work. And I'm very, very active. So feel free to follow me, send me a connection request. Let's connect. Thank you so much for attending today, and all the best.